Story 1. The Living Portraits. It was a drizzly Saturday afternoon when Mark, Lisa, and I decided to visit the Elysium Art Gallery. I'd heard whispers about the place in our local art circles, how its portraits were so lifelike that they seemed almost sentient. The gallery was nestled in a forgotten corner of the city, housed in a Victorian-style building with ivy creeping up its stone walls and weathered gargoyles standing guard. "Are you sure this is the place?" Mark asked, his voice tinged with doubt as he eyed the building. "Yeah, it's supposed to be amazing," I replied, feeling a thrill of anticipation. "I've heard the portraits are so realistic it's like they can see right through you." Lisa, ever the rational one, shrugged. "Let's just see for ourselves." We pushed open the heavy wooden doors, which groaned in protest, and stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, with a faint musty smell that spoke of history and secrets. The walls were lined with paintings, each more captivating than the last. The lighting was strategic, casting eerie shadows and highlighting the intricate details of the artwork. "Welcome to Elysium," a voice said, making us jump. We turned to see a woman standing behind us, her smile enigmatic. She was tall, with striking features and an air of mystery. "I'm Olivia, the curator. Feel free to explore, but please, do not touch the portraits." We nodded, and she melted back into the shadows. I led the way, eager to see the famous portraits for myself. As we moved deeper into the gallery, the paintings became more vivid, almost three-dimensional. It was as if the subjects were about to step out of their frames. "Look at this one," Lisa whispered, stopping in front of a large portrait of a man in Victorian attire. His eyes seemed to follow us, his expression shifting subtly with each glance. "It's uncanny," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's like he's alive." We continued exploring, each portrait more unsettling than the last. I was particularly drawn to one of a woman with piercing green eyes. There was something familiar about her, something that tugged at the edges of my memory. "Tom, are you okay?" Lisa asked, noticing my preoccupation. "Yeah, it's just..." "She looks familiar," I said, gesturing to the portrait. "Maybe she's a famous historical figure," Lisa suggested, but I wasn't convinced. As we moved through the gallery, the atmosphere grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped us. I could have sworn I heard faint whispering and soft footsteps behind us, but whenever I turned, there was no one there. "Let's stick together," Mark suggested, unease creeping into his voice. We reached a section of the gallery that seemed older, dustier. The portraits here were even more lifelike, their eyes almost glowing in the dim light. It was then that we heard it, a faint, mournful whisper. "Did you hear that?" Lisa asked, her eyes wide. "Yeah," I replied, my heart pounding. "Let's keep moving." We turned a corner and found ourselves in a small room filled with the most extraordinary portraits we had seen yet. The subjects seemed to be in various stages of anguish, their eyes pleading for help. "Something's not right," Mark said, his face pale. "We should leave." But as we tried to retrace our steps, the gallery's layout had inexplicably changed. Hallways looped back on themselves, and doors led to more rooms filled with disturbing, animated portraits. It was as if the gallery was alive, shifting its structure to keep us trapped. "Where's the exit?" Lisa cried, panic rising in her voice. "I don't know," I shouted, feeling a surge of fear. "We have to keep moving." As we hurried down a corridor, I noticed a portrait that made my blood run cold. It was a painting of Mark, his face twisted in terror. I grabbed his arm and pointed it out, and we both stared in horror. That's me," Mark stammered, his eyes wide with fear. "We need to find Olivia," Lisa said firmly. "She might know what's going on." We turned back, trying to find the curator, but the gallery seemed to be playing tricks on us. The corridors twisted and turned, leading us in circles. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the air grew colder. "Over here!" I called out, spotting a flicker of light down a narrow hallway. We rushed towards it, only to find ourselves in a small, dimly lit room. Olivia stood in the center, her expression unreadable. "What's happening?" I demanded. "Why are the portraits changing?" Olivia sighed, her eyes sad. "The gallery has a life of its own," she said, It feeds on the energy of its visitors, drawing them into the paintings. You knew this would happen? Lisa asked, her voice shaking. I tried to warn you, Olivia replied, but once you're inside, there's no easy way out. How do we escape? Mark asked, desperation in his voice. There is a way, Olivia said slowly, but it requires a sacrifice. Before we could ask what she meant, the gallery shuddered and the walls seemed to close in on us. The portraits began to glow, and the faces of the subjects twisted in agony. Follow me, Olivia commanded, leading us down another corridor. We followed her, the air thick with fear and uncertainty. She led us to a large, ornate door at the end of a long hallway. This is the exit, she said, turning to face us. But one of you must stay behind. Stay behind? Mark echoed, his voice barely a whisper. The gallery requires a new soul to maintain its power, Olivia explained. One of you must become part of the collection. No way, Lisa said firmly. There has to be another way. I'm afraid not, Olivia replied, her eyes filled with sorrow. It's the only way to break the cycle. We stood there, frozen, the weight of her words sinking in. The gallery seemed to pulse with energy, the portraits watching us with hungry eyes. I'll do it, I said finally, my voice steady. I'll stay. Tom, no, Lisa cried, grabbing my arm. We can't leave you here. You have to, I said, my heart breaking. It's the only way. Before they could protest further, Olivia opened the door, and a blinding light filled the room. Go, I urged them. Get out while you can. With tears in their eyes, Lisa and Mark stepped through the door. I watched as the light swallowed them, and then the door closed, leaving me alone with Olivia. You're brave, she said softly, but there may be another way out for you too. The gallery thrives on energy, but it also follows rules. What rules? I asked, desperate for hope. You must find your way through the gallery's maze before dawn, Olivia explained. If you can do that, the gallery might let you go. But if you fail, you will become one of the portraits. Before dawn? I repeated, my heart sinking. Yes, she said. You have until the first light of day. Good luck, Tom. With that, she vanished into the shadows, leaving me alone. The gallery groaned and shifted, the walls pressing in on me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I had to find my way out. For hours, I wandered through the labyrinthine corridors, the portraits watching my every move. I encountered more whispering voices, more twisted faces pleading for release. My fear threatened to overwhelm me, but I pressed on, determined to find the exit. At one point, I stumbled into a small, hidden room filled with old maps and documents. Among the papers, I found a map of the gallery. It was confusing and incomplete, but it offered a glimmer of hope. I studied it, trying to piece together the path to freedom. With the map as my guide, I navigated the twisting corridors, my heart racing with each step. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, as if the gallery itself was trying to mislead me. But I stayed focused, following the map's hints and trusting my instincts. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the cracks in the walls, I saw a familiar door ahead. It was the same door Olivia had shown us earlier. With a surge of hope, I pushed it open and stumbled out into the cold morning air. I collapsed on the pavement, exhausted but free. As I lay there, the sun rising above the city, I felt a profound sense of relief. I had escaped. Lisa and Mark found me a few hours later, worried sick but overjoyed to see me. We embraced, the terror of the night slowly fading away. Reflecting on our ordeal, I realized how fragile life is, and how easily we can be drawn into darkness. The experience had brought us closer, but it had also shown us the dangers of curiosity and the unknown. As we walked away from the Elysium Art Gallery, I couldn't help but glance back. The building looked abandoned, its windows dark and empty. I knew I had changed that day, my encounter with the gallery leaving a permanent mark on my soul. Years later, the gallery remains closed, its secrets still buried in the shadows. But every now and then, I think back to that night, to the whispers and the portraits, and I wonder what other mysteries lie hidden in the forgotten corners of our world.
Story 2. The Cursed Sculpture. It all started on a crisp autumn afternoon. My friends, Will, Hazel, and I, decided to check out an art exhibition at the newly opened Coventry Art Gallery. We had heard about an enigmatic sculptor whose works were said to carry an unsettling aura. Hazel, being the art enthusiast among us, was particularly excited. "You guys have to see this," she had gushed over coffee the previous week. "This sculptor, Alexander Dreyfus, is supposed to be amazing. They say his sculptures feel almost alive." "I don't know, Hazel," Will had said skeptically. "I've heard some weird stories about his pieces." "Don't be such a wuss," I had teased. "It'll be fun." That Saturday, we found ourselves standing in front of the gallery, its sleek modern architecture stark against the backdrop of falling leaves. We paid for our tickets and entered, the smell of fresh paint and polished wood filling the air. The gallery was buzzing with visitors, their murmurs echoing softly against the high ceilings. The main exhibit hall was filled with sculptures of all shapes and sizes, each one more intricate and lifelike than the last. As we wandered through the hall, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The eyes of the sculptures seemed to follow us, their expressions shifting subtly with each glance. "Look at this one," Hazel said, pulling us towards a particularly large sculpture in the center of the room. It was a life-size figure of a man carved from dark, polished stone. The detail was incredible, every wrinkle, every strand of hair meticulously crafted. "It's almost too realistic," Will muttered, eyeing the sculpture warily. "It's incredible," Hazel whispered, awestruck. "It's like he's about to step off the pedestal." I had to admit, it was impressive. But there was something unsettling about the figure's eyes. They seemed too aware, too knowing. As we moved on to the next exhibit, I couldn't shake the feeling that the sculpture was watching us. We spent the next couple of hours exploring the gallery, marveling at the art. But as the afternoon wore on, I began to feel increasingly uneasy. I caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye, but whenever I turned to look, there was nothing there. "Did you see that?" I asked at one point, my voice low. "See what?" Hazel replied, looking around. "I thought I saw something move," I said, feeling foolish even as I said it. "You're just creeped out by the sculptures," Will teased. "They're so lifelike, they're playing tricks on your mind." "Yeah, maybe," I said, though I wasn't convinced. As the gallery started to empty out, we found ourselves drawn back to the central sculpture. It seemed different now, more ominous. The gallery lights cast long shadows, and the figure's eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. "We should go," Hazel said suddenly, her voice tinged with unease. "It's getting late." "Yeah, let's get out of here," Will agreed, a nervous edge to his voice. We turned to leave, but as we did, I felt a cold hand brush against my arm. I spun around, but there was no one there, just the sculpture, standing silently on its pedestal. "Did you feel that?" I asked, my heart racing. "Feel what?" Hazel asked, looking confused. "Something touched me," I insisted, rubbing my arm. "You're imagining things," Will said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. We left the gallery quickly, the eerie feeling lingering as we walked back to our car. As we drove home, we tried to shake off the unease, laughing and joking about the creepy sculptures. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the figure's eyes, glowing in the dark. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. I began finding small stone figures around my apartment, on my kitchen counter, my bedside table, even in my bathroom. They were crude, hastily made, but unmistakably similar to the sculptures in the gallery. "Are you guys messing with me?" I asked Hazel and Will when we met up later that week. "What are you talking about?" Hazel asked, looking genuinely confused. "I keep finding these little stone figures in my apartment," I said, showing them one I had brought with me. "It's like someone's trying to freak me out." "That's really weird," Will said, frowning. "Maybe someone's playing a prank on you." "Who would do that?" I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. "Have you told anyone else about the gallery?" Hazel asked. "No, just you guys," I said. "And you swear you're not behind this?" "Of course not," Hazel said, looking offended. "Why would we do something like that?" As the days went by, the incidents escalated. I started hearing whispers in the middle of the night, faint and indistinct. Shadows moved in the corners of my vision, and objects in my apartment seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. The stone figures continued to appear, their crude features growing more detailed with each passing day. One night, I woke up to find the largest figure yet, a miniature replica of the central sculpture from the gallery, sitting on my nightstand. Its eyes seemed to glow in the darkness, and as I reached out to touch it, it felt unnaturally cold. "That's it," I muttered to myself. "I'm going back to the gallery." The next day, I convinced Hazel and Will to come with me. They had experienced strange things too, though not as severe as what I was going through. We arrived at the gallery just before closing and asked to speak with Nora, the curator. "I need to know about the central sculpture," I said, my voice urgent. "There's something wrong with it." Nora looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "What do you mean?" "Ever since we visited, strange things have been happening," I explained. "I keep finding these stone figures in my apartment, and I'm hearing whispers, seeing shadows." Nora's expression grew serious. "You're not the first to report such experiences," she said quietly. Alexander Dreyfus's sculptures have a dark history. It's said that he infused them with a part of his soul, and those who come too close to them are affected. "Why didn't you tell us?" Hazel demanded, her face pale. "We didn't think it was real," Nora admitted. "Just rumors and superstition, but if what you're saying is true..." "It is," I insisted. "What can we do?" "There might be a way to break the connection," Nora said slowly, "but it's risky." "We'll do whatever it takes," Will said firmly. Nora led us to the central sculpture, the gallery now eerily quiet. "You need to confront it," she said, "acknowledge its presence, and demand that it leave you alone." Feeling a mix of fear and determination, I stepped forward. The sculpture loomed over me, its eyes seeming to burn into my soul. "I know you're there," I said, my voice shaking. "Whatever you are, whatever you want, leave me alone. You have no power over me." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a cold breeze swept through the gallery, and the sculpture's eyes seemed to dim. The oppressive feeling lifted, and I felt a weight leave my shoulders. "Did it work?" Hazel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think so," I said, feeling a tentative sense of relief. We left the gallery, and over the next few days, the strange occurrences ceased. The stone figures stopped appearing, and the whispers and shadows faded away. Life slowly returned to normal, though the experience left a lasting impression on all of us. Reflecting on those events, I realized how close we had come to something truly dark and unknowable. The cursed sculpture had changed us, made us more aware of the thin veil between our world and something beyond. It was a brush with the supernatural that none of us would ever forget. But even now, years later, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, half expecting to see a stone figure on my nightstand. The memory of the sculpture's eyes glowing in the darkness remains etched in my mind, a reminder that some mysteries are best left unsolved.
Story 3. The Forgotten Exhibit. Rain was pouring down, a relentless cascade that made the world outside my window look like a blurry watercolor painting. My plans for a lazy Saturday afternoon with a book and some tea were interrupted by my best friend Lila's insistent phone call. She had found a new art gallery in town and was convinced we had to see it. Our mutual friend David was also tagging along, and I figured it would be a nice way to spend the day together despite the weather. The gallery, intriguingly named The Forgotten Exhibit, was located in an old restored mansion on the outskirts of town. Its grand Gothic architecture stood in stark contrast to the modern buildings that surrounded it. The rain only added to its mystique, making it seem like something out of a Victorian ghost story. As we stepped inside, we were greeted by the curator, Mr. Geller, a tall, thin man with piercing blue eyes and an enigmatic smile. He welcomed us warmly and handed us brochures detailing the history of the mansion and the unique collection of art on display, all created by various local artists. The atmosphere inside was calm, but charged with an inexplicable tension. We began our tour on the ground floor, marveling at the impressive artwork. Each piece seemed to have a life of its own, with intricate details and vibrant colors. Lila was particularly drawn to a painting of a woman standing in a garden, her eyes seemingly following us as we moved around the room. "Isn't it amazing?" Lila whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "Yeah, it's incredible," I agreed, though I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was an underlying sense of unease that I couldn't quite put my finger on. David, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. He was joking and making lighthearted comments, trying to lighten the mood. "Come on, guys. Let's check out the upstairs. I heard there's an interactive exhibit." We made our way up the grand staircase, the wood creaking under our feet. The second floor was dimly lit, with a long corridor lined with doors on either side. At the end of the corridor was a room marked "The Forgotten Exhibit." "That's the one," David said, leading the way. As we entered the room, we were met with an array of peculiar items. It was unlike any art exhibit I had ever seen. There were old photographs, antique furniture, and strange, unidentifiable objects displayed in glass cases. Each item had a small plaque with a brief description, but many of them were vague and left much to the imagination. One particular item caught my eye, a small ornate box made of dark wood with intricate carvings on its surface. The plaque read, "The Box of Lost Memories." "What's this supposed to be?" Lila asked, peering at the box. "No idea," David said, leaning in for a closer look. "But it looks pretty cool." I felt a strange compulsion to touch the box, to open it and see what was inside. But as I reached out, Mr. Geller appeared out of nowhere, his presence startling us. "Ah, I see you found the Box of Lost Memories," he said, his voice low and almost hypnotic. "It's one of our most intriguing pieces." "What's inside?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Mr. Geller smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That, my dear, is a mystery. The box has been here for as long as the mansion itself. Some say it holds the memories of those who have visited this place." I shivered, pulling my hand back. "That sounds creepy." "It's just a story," David said, rolling his eyes. "Come on, let's keep looking around." We continued exploring the exhibit, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every now and then I would catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye, only to find nothing there when I turned to look. The rain outside had intensified, and the sound of thunder echoed through the mansion, adding to the eerie atmosphere. At one point, I found myself standing in front of an old mirror. Its surface was tarnished and spotted with age, but I could still see my reflection. As I stared into the mirror, I saw something move behind me, a shadowy figure, just out of focus. I spun around, my heart pounding, but there was no one there. "Did you guys see that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "See what?" Lila asked, looking concerned. "There was someone behind me in the mirror," I said, feeling foolish even as I said it. "It's probably just your imagination," David said, though he looked a bit uneasy himself. We continued our tour, but the strange occurrences only became more frequent. Lila swore she heard whispering voices, and David claimed he saw a door at the end of the corridor open and close on its own. The sense of unease grew stronger, and we decided it was time to leave. As we made our way back downstairs, we passed by the room with the Box of Lost Memories again. This time, the box was open, and a faint, eerie light was emanating from it. "Did you open that?" I asked, looking at Mr. Geller, who was standing nearby. "No," he said, his voice calm. "It seems the box has chosen to reveal itself to you." "What does that mean?" Lila asked, her voice shaking. "It means you have become a part of its story," Mr. Geller said, his eyes fixed on the box. "You have seen what lies within, and now it has seen you. We hurried out of the mansion, not daring to look back. The rain was pouring down, drenching us as we ran to the car. We drove away in silence, the only sound the beating of the rain against the windshield. Over the next few days, strange things began happening. I started having vivid, disturbing dreams about the mansion and the box. Lila reported seeing shadows in her apartment, and David claimed he heard whispering voices at night. We met up a week later to talk about our experiences. "I think we need to go back," I said, my voice firm. "We need to find out what's going on." "Are you crazy?" David asked, his face pale. "Why would we go back there?" "Because whatever's happening to us, it started at that gallery," I said. "We need to confront it, or it will never stop." Reluctantly, they agreed. We returned to the gallery, determined to get some answers. Mr. Geller was waiting for us, as if he knew we would come back. "We need to know the truth," I said, looking him in the eye. "What is the box of lost memories?" Mr. Geller sighed, his expression somber. "The box is a conduit, a gateway to the past. It holds the memories of those who have encountered it, and it can reveal their deepest fears and desires. But once you have seen into the box, it sees into you." "How do we stop it?" Lila asked, her voice trembling. "There is no stopping it," Mr. Geller said. "The only way to be free of its influence is to leave it behind, to forget about it and move on." We left the gallery, feeling a mix of relief and lingering fear. As we walked away from the forgotten exhibit for the last time, I couldn't help but glance back. The building looked as ordinary as ever, but I knew better. Some places, some objects, carry a darkness that can never be fully understood or explained. And sometimes, it's best to leave them undisturbed, their secrets hidden in the shadows. Over time, the strange occurrences began to fade, though the memory of that day never left us. The experience had changed us, made us more aware of the thin veil between our world and the unknown.